Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and SERVPRO.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone, welcome live to 3Y TV and the broadcast of round 5 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown here, the Motor City 200 from the famed Michigan International Raceway, 2-mile D-shaped oval that will host round 15 of the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series here tonight. I'm Peter Short. Joining me in the booth is Greg Renz, and we also have a guest in the booth here this week, kind of our expert summarizer, driver of the number 51 machine, Mitch Brown. And Mitch, I'm going to jump straight to it because you're not in tonight's race. You struck out after last week's race because of the strike rule. You're coming tonight second place in points, but you won't be out on the racetrack. How big of a blow is this not being out there on the racetrack?
It's kind of a blow, but we're just going to count this as our unofficial week for me. It sucks that we can't be out there tonight, but I mean, it's Michigan. It's not one of my favorite tracks, so I'm kind of sort of happy that I'm not out there. But I mean, it is what it is. We'll try to do it next week for Sonoma.
Absolutely, looking forward to the next race at Sonoma. Like you said, the War Turtle Racing Wine Country Clash. It should be awesome to be turning left and right, but Greg, they're not turning right here tonight. Well, hopefully not much turning right here tonight at Michigan, this 2-mile D-shaped oval. This is a racetrack with this current package that we have. You have some pack racing for the first few laps, but then it goes into tire conservation mode. The cars start to get strung out. Is that what you're expecting to see here tonight, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I'm expecting to see that, especially on the initial starts. This is a track known for long green flag runs. So the first few laps are going to be pretty exciting as you're going to see guys going 3, 4, maybe even 5 wide for the first few laps of a green flag run. But once you get into a longer run, once you get into the lap 15, lap 20 of a green flag run, things really start to settle down as tire wear begins to creep up more and more. And it's going to be interesting to see how many of these drivers play the conservation game at the start of the race and when they elect to start going all out. 100 laps here at Michigan, Peter. It's a long race, and I'm looking forward to this because historically, Michigan International Speedway has been kind of the home game for the manufacturers in the NASCAR world, as many of the car manufacturers and the car makers that you see in NASCAR, not just today, but over the course of history, they've all been based in the Detroit area, and Michigan International Speedway is the home track for Ford and Chevy, and you throw in some Toyotas on top of that, sprinkle in some international flavor, and this makes for a very, very exciting race with some bragging rights on the line every time these drivers come to Michigan.
Absolutely. It will be a fantastic show here tonight. That is for sure. The practice session has come to a conclusion, and AJ Digby in the number 14 machine, fastest in practice. And Twitter verified AJ Digby, the Paralympian in that number 14 machine in the Premier Series, earning his Premier Series license this week and already showing a lot of pace in this practice session. We'll see if he can back that up here in the qualifying session. There's the number 11 machine, Tyler Seville, already out there on the racetrack, going off into turn number 1 and 2, trying to stay below that yellow line. You can't go above it until you see that blue cone on the backstretch, which you'll be seeing very shortly. There you go. And now he can blend up onto the racetrack. Now, Greg, do you expect to see Seville kind of treat this like a super speedway and run up near the wall on his out lap and possibly even his first qualifying?
Honestly, yes. We've been seeing that more and more on the bigger tracks with this new aero package. That's been the case this year. You see more and more drivers run up top on their first lap and treating these races like super speedway races because of the amount of downforce in the cars, and it helps to keep it up against the wall. And it looks like that's exactly what we're seeing Tyler Seville do, as he comes down a little bit there in the corner through 1 and 2 and comes back up to the wall here off of turn number 2 down the backstretch. But we've seen that more and more on the bigger tracks, Peter. Drivers keeping it up near the wall for the qualifying lap or the first lap, like you would see at Daytona and Talladega, building up speed before going all out on your second lap.
Yeah, and Seville will come to the stripe here to complete his first lap. You see him dive down below the white stripe to take off as much time as he can, as now he begins his flying lap. And Mitch, you know, we kind of saw that Tyler was running about 2 grooves down in turn number 1 and 2 and about a groove off the wall in turn number 3 and 4. How does this racetrack stack up when it comes to multiple grooves?
It kind of depends on how the race moves. I mean, like you said, where Tyler was running 1 and 2. But as the run goes on, you know, 5, 10, 15 laps in the run, it's going to start getting towards the above the second and third seam. So I don't think it's going to be really multi-groove. It's just, you know, trying to get to the bottom to start the run and then getting to the top as soon as 5 to 10 laps come in.
Well, I'm sure we will see that in full force here tonight. Here comes Cody Spiker in the number 19 Snap-on machine coming across the start-finish line. Looks like he's going to jump into the 15th position. Tyler Seville, we watched him complete his fast lap. He's jumped up into second. Michael Krobach in the number 72 HPPSimulations.com Ford Mustang is currently sitting atop the board in that 72 machine. It's a great run for him so far. We saw a quick shot there of the number 24 machine of Alan Young. There's Will Worsler back on the racetrack this week. I'm sure he's excited to have that Slice Porcupines machine, that new paint scheme, back out there on the racetrack. There's the number 50, Christopher Bouchard, coming out there onto the racetrack. Lots of cars still out there completing their lap times. Here we go. Todd Kirkwood here in the number 86 Time Rev Ford Mustang. He's down in the 31st position right now. Looks like he's only completed his first of his 2 laps, so we'll have to see if he can pick it up on lap number 2. But we have a lot of cars, like I said, out there turning laps. And one driver I'm going to have to keep an eye on is Grant Brown in the number 52 machine. Has a lot of momentum coming into this race. Really put together some great races in that number 52 machine as of late, Greg.
And going back to last week, we talked about Grant Brown a lot in our last race, actually 2 weeks ago, as the SRS was off for week 13, the big annual, well, 4-time annual celebration of the end of the season on iRacing. A lot of great racing going on week 13, but we're back in it. But going back to what we talked about, yeah, Grant Brown had a lot of momentum going in that race 2 weeks ago, and we mentioned him quite a bit. Didn't get the results he was after, but he's looking to build on that. Unfortunately, the qualifying time, not what he wanted. He's sitting 20th on the charts right now in the number 52, but we know that the 52 has speed, and he showed a lot of it 2 weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to seeing him try to make his way through the field here once again.
Yeah, and we also see the number 1 machine coming across the finish line. That's Jason Stewart. Got checkered flag PC on the hood of that Toyota. Love the black and green scheme on that car. It's one of my favorite color combinations that he's sporting this week in the Dirty Bird Sim Racing Toyota. There's the 01 machine. Kind of a throwback there, Greg. Kind of who was that? Was that Casey Atwood who used to run that scheme back in the day for... back when in 2001 with the Singular Wireless machine?
I believe that was actually Jason Leffler that drove that car initially before it went over to RCR and Robbie Gordon began driving the Singular car. But either way, great looking car for Brad Lee, the 01. Nice to see a throwback to one of the old paint schemes back when we were kids, Peter. It's always so much fun to see these old paint schemes come back on these current cars.
But hey, speaking of throwback, this week we actually have the start of the American Sim Racing Series Throwback Series, which is going to be super, super cool, brought to you by Boswell Country Roads Harley-Davidson. And, it's finally getting to see those 1987 Cup cars on the racetrack here in the American Sim Racing Series. I'm looking forward to it right here on 3Y TV this Thursday night, same time. And we're going to be going to North Wilkesboro, Greg, which is a retro track. It's going to be awesome.
It's so much fun, and North Wilkesboro has just been so popular on iRacing since it came to the server last month. It's been so much fun watching it. Remember, iRacing actually did what was called the North Wilkesboro Challenge with the current Cup cars. It seemed like every hour for 5 weeks straight, it felt like, ever since Wilkesboro was launched, that you could run every hour at Wilkesboro. And a lot of drivers have been spending a lot of time at Wilkesboro. I'm excited to actually finally get to go there as a broadcaster for the first time, because I've had so much fun both racing and watching at Wilkesboro. I'm excited to finally get to go broadcast a race here this coming Thursday. Make sure you guys are here on 3Y TV for that one.
Absolutely, but we do have 100 laps, 200 miles here at Michigan International Speedway with the current Cup cars here tonight. Why don't we bring up the current point standings coming into tonight's race? And there was a change at the top. I know you probably won't be too excited about that, Mitch Brown, but Mitch, you lost the points lead this week to John Jenkins in the number 7 machine. And I'll tell you what, it has been a pretty darn good and close championship so far this season. You were able to kind of close in on Jenkins, pass him, but now he's got the lead back. Greg Evans closing in with another win 2 weeks ago. He's got 2 wins in a row in the Cup Series, 6 wins to his name this season. Joseph Seville coming into tonight 4th. Michael Krobach in that number 72 machine. He's had good pace here in qualifying, putting it on the pole so far, coming into tonight 5th place in points. Brian Yazik, Jimmy McKee, Troy Haight, Jason Stewart, Will Worcester rounding out your top 10. I know Will excited to be back in the show after missing 2 weeks ago. And Greg, I think we're running out of checkered flags there for Greg Evans. We're kind of running out of room. We're going to probably have to put if he wins here tonight, I think we're just going to have to put a checkered flag times 7 for next week.
It may get to that stage, Peter, and I'm sure that they're happy that they don't have to worry about getting stickers for all the cars like they do in the Cup Series, because that would be quite the bill for win stickers on this one. That just goes to show just how strong what before tonight was the 83 car. But Peter, he's one of a couple of drivers who changed numbers today. So Greg Evans, we've been saying he's in the 83 all week or all season. He is in the number 2 starting tonight. Looks like 3 drivers switching numbers from the previous race. Greg Evans, one of them. He will be in the number 2 from now on, but kind of an uncharacteristic qualifying effort for him, Peter, rolling off 18th position. That's very un-Greg Evans-like.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if there's one way to throw off the commentators faster than fast, it's to change up your number and your paint scheme. So we'll have to keep an eye out for Greg Evans here tonight. Mitch, before we go green here, we got the cars gridding here in just about a minute. Anything that has caught your eye about this racetrack in particular this week that you want to make known?
No, just like I said before, it's gonna be the pack. There's gonna be a lot of pack racing first 5 laps, and then you'll kind of see as you get to 10 or 15 laps in a run, you'll see guys who save the tires early on, because tire wear is gonna be a big key tonight. And it'll show who saved their tires, and you'll see slide from the front to the back. Guys that save early make.
Yeah, it's going to be very similar, I think, back to the Kirkwood Transportation 200 that we had at Auto Club earlier this season. It was round 3 of the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. Greg Evans actually took the win in that race, but like you said, pack racing for the first few laps, and then the field starts to spread out. But folks, that's going to do it for the qualifying session. The track has gone silent, and everyone will start gridding here in just a moment. Michael Krobach in the number 72 machine. Great run for him, and he will have his first pole of the 2020 Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. And I'm sure he's going to be really excited with that, because one thing about Krobach is He's usually one of those drivers, kind of like how Matt Kenseth used to be. Doesn't always qualify great, but he tries to get there at the end, and all of a sudden he sneaks up into the top 10, and that's why he is solidly inside the top 10 and inside the top 5 here in points tonight. Let's go through tonight's starting lineup on the pole. Like I mentioned, Michael Krobach in the number 72 machine. To his outside, Tyler Seville. We saw him use that high line to his advantage and get all wound up so he can get a good fast lap in. Starting to on the outside of row number 2 there. Will Worsler in the number 29 machine on the inside, and to his outside, the number 53 machine of John Bouchard. Great qualifying run for that number 53 machine. We'll have to see if he can keep it up near the front here tonight. AJ Digby in the number 14 machine. He'll be starting on the inside of row number 3. What a start this could be for that number 14 machine, just getting his Premier Series license this past week. Woody Mahan in the number 84 will be to his outside on that row. Brian Yazik, teammate of Michael Krobach, will be on the inside of row number 4. Is yet to present. Oh, there he is, popping in. And to his outside, the number 57 Will Worsler Racing Machine of Craig Stykes. Right behind him is one of his Will Worsler Racing Machines teammates, the number 18 there of Doug Mullins, and to his outside, the number 24 of Alan Young. 11th position, Greg?
It will be James Lorello in the number 3, who was very fast in practice up near the top of the chart. He was outside the McKee Lawn Care Chevy of Jimmy McKee. Jason Stewart, who everyone was so impressed with at Charlotte, almost stole the victory. Unfortunately, just didn't go his way. Will roll off in the 13th position with Pete Baskins to his outside in number 27. Kelsey Rogers completes the top 15 in the number 34, rolling off 15 to his outside. Runner-up to Mitch Brown at Dover. Troy Haight came home in second that day. He starts 16th here tonight. Chris Hughes going off in position number 17. There's Greg Evans in the number 2. New look, new number for the 2. Chris Stouffer, another one of those drivers with a new number. And the third and final driver with a new number, Michael Whiting, number 44 tonight, rolls off 20th.
Starting in 21st, the number 52 of Grant Brown. To his outside, the number 38 of Nick Gardner. Adam Jurski in the Beef Jerski's Cheesecake Machine. Number 69 will be starting in 23rd position. Ty Hester in 24th. Cody Spiker and Jared Heckerty make up row number 13. Tim Knott, Todd Kirkwood, behind them, row number 14. Tony Schoen and Edward Gray, row number 15. Alex Giese, 2 weeks ago, pole sitter, will start 31st with Brad Lee 32nd. John Van Varellis, Richard Stallings 33rd, 34th. J.R. Bash, Mark Myers 35th, 36th. John Jenkins, your points leader. Christopher Bouchard, Richard Fletcher, and Sam Crow round out your 30-car field. The pace truck going to head down pit road right here. Race now in the hands of Michael Krobach, waiting for that green flag to fly. You can see the Geico restart zone down there that's plastered on all the NASCAR tracks, and there's the green flag. Finally, we're back racing here in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC Series. And I'll tell you what, Michael Krobach already out to a good jump, cleared the number 11 of Tyler Seville going off into turn number 1, and pulled the number 29 machine of Will Worsler with him. And look at the number 55 of Brian Yazik, Krobach's teammate there in third. What a great start there for Yazik.
Yeah, I was keeping my eye on Yazik there on the initial start because I saw that Seville kind of struggled getting going there, and I saw Will Worsler able to get around him. I was keeping my eye on the 55 to see if he could, and he was able to. But man, oh man, look at this, Peter. He is completely boxed in by Will Worsler Racing. All 4 Will Worsler Racing cars on any side of the 55. The only thing that's not to his or surrounded by a Will Worsler car with Yazik is the outside wall right next to him. They are completely surrounding him. That is the definition of boxed in right there.
Absolutely. You look out back of Brian Yazik's machine at the number 11 of Tyler Seville. Now halfway down the backstretch, we have a battle for the race lead brewing. Here comes Doug Mullins around the outside. A little bit of help from his teammate, the number 29 of Will Worsler, just to push him to the lead here. Now we'll have to see if Krobach can come back at him here on the front stretch, but I don't think so. If this lap led to Doug Mullins, he was third 1 lap ago, and now he is the race leader here, working lap number 3 of 100 laps. And I'll tell you what, Mitch, this is about what I was expecting to see, is what you were expecting to see. A lot of pack racing here in the early going. How important is it to pace yourself at this point in the run?
Oh, it's definitely going to be key to pace yourself because, especially with the tire limit rule, if you go too early, especially at track right here, you're going to be paying for 15, 20 laps into the run. That right front's going to be gone.
Yeah, and of course, with a lot of those cars mid-pack, a lot of dirty air on the nose. Basically, the cars in front of them punching a hole in the air, reducing the downforce on the car. There's just not enough air to produce the pressure to produce that downforce in that dirty air, and it's just going to eat through more tire because you're going to have to put more wheel in it to get the car to turn. So very, very important here in the early run. It's drivers like Greg Evans and the number 7 machine that we've seen all season just slowly but surely make their way up through the field. The 7 machine, John Jenkins, currently back in the 36th position. Here we go on board with the number 2 of Greg Evans. You see him, he's still well back. He's still in the 20th spot, so he's actually lost a couple spots from the start, and I think what he's doing here is just pacing himself, Mitch.
Yeah, he's pacing himself, and if you're starting to notice, a lot of guys are starting to get up to that above that second or third seam, and just because they know it's so loose on the bottom, especially 10 lap, 15 lap in the run. But yeah, he's pacing himself. He'll be fine. We'll start to see him work his way towards the front around 15 laps in.
Michael Krobach in the number 72 HPPsimulation.com Ford Mustang is taking it back up to the front here, Greg. Trying to get some clean air on the nose of that race car, and don't blame him, especially with how much you have to save your tires.
Yeah, we always talk about how important clean air is with this package, and it's especially important at a track like this, such as Michigan, because you get that clean air, you don't have the disruption of the cars in front of you when you're out front like that. When we say clean air, what we mean is the air that bounces off your car as you're going down the backstretch at 200 miles an hour. That's what we call dirty air, and that disrupts the nose of your car if you're stuck in the draft behind someone. So while, yes, you're able to get a little bit more speed, it's a little bit harder to hang on to. So with the 72 being out in front like this, he has that clean air. He's a little bit more stable than, say, the 18 of Doug Mullins is right now. So while the 18 is able to draft on him, Krobach is able to keep it a little bit more steady and in control, as Mullins has to kind of ride around and try to keep it lined up with the 72. And when you're in that dirty air, it's a little bit tougher than you would think, as opposed to being in the clean air.
Yeah, I've been watching some of these drivers out there on the racetrack. One driver who I have seen, he's driving a little bit different line than some of the other cars. He's actually the number 6 of Jared Haggerty. He's washing up the racetrack just a little bit. Might be trying to get some clean air on his nose. Didn't work out for him there, though, as it looked like it got a little bit tight coming off the corner. This racetrack, although you can run multiple grooves, it is fairly groove dependent. There seems to be a cushion, so to speak, a certain point on the racetrack where the grip just falls away. And I think Haggerty found it that last lap, and he's kind of following now the herd in front of him, running a little bit lower on the racetrack as such. Pete Baskins in the number 27 machine, got the DMLC Racing Channel on the hook. We got the DMLC Racing Channel in the chat. How's it going, Mark Hope Paul as well? We got Nikki Warsler in the chat, as well as TWSG and SLR. Rooting on Adam Jersky and Aunt Kathy in the chat, as well as defined tonight's Adam Jersky's Beef Jersky's cheesecake as salted caramel. I'll tell you what, is it caramel or caramel? I'll let you decide. But either way, either way, it's delicious. That's exactly what I was going to say. But there is that number 69 machine. And there's the number 55 of Brian Yazik. Qualified in 7th, is running in 7th. Right in front of the number 8 machine of Jimmy McKee, running the McKee Lawn Care Scheme. Well, let's see if we can figure out who the biggest mover is of the race so far. Because,
we got problems with Haggerty and Gardner, and I believe Giesi's caught up in it as well.
Oh, man, that is not what Jared Haggerty wanted to see. I mentioned him just a little bit ago, running a little bit higher line. Nick Gardner, the Carolina Nut Company machine, he's got quite a bit of damage. To see what happened here, and he just ran too high. So what I was saying a little bit ago, that there's almost a cushion where you get up above it, and the car just all of a sudden loses grip. That's what happened there to that number 6 Cheerwine Toyota, and he will have to come down pit road, I'm sure, to get as much damage repaired as possible. This is not what Jared Haggerty wanted to have happen here in the early go, and nowhere for Nick Gardner there to go, and that number 38 machine going right round. Who was the other car that you said might have got a piece of it? The 77 of Giesi. Yeah, and that's a tough break for Giesi. We saw Giesi have all that pace in qualifying 2 weeks ago and just couldn't back that up with a good race, and here again, He has a significant amount of damage from this contact. And there it is. Oh, man, right into the side of the number 38 machine going through the grass. And like you can see there, folks, no front bumper on that number 77 machine. I'll tell you what, Mitch, no front bumper at this point in the race. That is a long night.
That is a very long night indeed. And, you know, if I was Alex Geese, I'd try to get as much damage as I can fixed and just kind of ride. You know, you're not really going to have a chance to get a solid top 20 finish, but I mean, you can just ride out there. You can at least get a top 25 because a lot of these guys are going to probably drop out here.
We got a lot of cars coming down pit road. We also got Mark Cohn asking if the 27 made it through unscathed. I think he did. I don't see any damage on that number 27 machine, so that's good news for that DMLC Racing Channel machine. We got John Broussard in number 53, Alan Young, Troy Haight, Tony Schoen, John Jenkins, Tim Knott, Christopher Bouchard, Edward Bray among the drivers coming down pit road. So some of the heavy hitters there. John Jenkins just coming down to get a little bit of fuel on the Max Pappas Innovations Toyota Camry. There you see Haggerty getting all that damage repaired. And Greg, a couple of cars down there, some of the pit crew kind of look like they might be out of Star Wars or something.
Yeah, it's interesting down there, Peter, seeing these drivers getting the repairs done. Haggerty on pit road, Giese on pit road, and we talked about the 27 barely getting through that with no damage, but I saw another one who barely got through, and man, oh man, what a story that would have been if he was caught up in it. Greg Evans, the number 2, just barely squeaked through that as well. Saw it on one of those replays there. He barely got through. How big would that have been if the guy with 6 wins on the season had gotten collected in that one?
Yeah, you know, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what this number 2 can do here in this race. You know, he is mid-pack, 19th position right now, right in front of Pete Baskin's machine. Just probably saving tires at this point. Mitch Brown alluded to it earlier. There is a tire limit here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. And Mitch, how important is it for you to manage that? I mean, we've seen you a couple times this season go a little bit off strategy, try and do something a little bit different than the other drivers. Is it something you like? Is it something that, you know, you're like, oh man, I wish I could go down and get a fresh set of tires every time? Or is it just something that you enjoy and you kind of have to strategize around?
It's something, I mean, I kind of enjoy it. It's something you got to strategize around it. But I mean, it's, you know, I wish we had a little more than the given sets that they give us each week. But I mean, it is what it is. But I also want to mention, if you guys didn't forget, new rule this week, the leader gets lane choice. So Michael Krobach, he's going to start on the outside.
Yeah, that was a new change this week, which is pretty cool to see that, you know, the leader now has the option. Only the front row changes. And so Krobach there in the number 72 going to use that high line to his advantage. Of course, we saw that high line very prevalent there after getting some laps on their tires. But we're getting set to go back to green. It'll be 12 laps down. Just 88 more to go when this green flag flies here. The number 72 of Michael Krobach, HPPsimulations.com machine leading the Slice Porcupines, number 18 of Doug Mullins. And look at that launch that Krobach got there. Greg, gotta start thinking, did Krobach get too big of a jump here? Because you think they're all going to be able to sail it off into turn number 1 and 2 here pretty much flat-footed.
And especially with the fact that it's all Will Worstler cars behind him before his teammate Brian Yazik, they're going to be able to line up and get themselves going in the draft here. As you already see, Doug Mullins pulling right up to the bumper of Krobach, and Krobach taking the lower line there down the backstretch, and that's going to allow Mullins to come up on his outside, and he's got the train behind him, but they split as Stykes kind of peaks low there on Worstler there, and Krobach able to get a good run through 3, so he's able to fight it off for now. But that was interesting that Krobach went so early, and remember, we saw this a couple of weeks ago, we've seen it a little bit recently. Drivers kind of going on different times on restarts, trying not to be predictable. So maybe Krobach was just trying to, contact behind him between James Morello, and who was that next to him? I believe it was 13 got together with him.
Yeah, that was Chris Stouffer in the number 13 machine. He just had the biggest run down the front stretch. Watch this, folks. the number 3 right in front of him, James Lorello, and there was so much closing speed. Oh man, there was kind of an accordion up in front of him, and Lorello had to jump out of it, and Stover had nowhere to go. Luckily, they were able to keep going, but both of those cars have a little bit of damage here in the early going. Also, AJ Digby, the number 14 machine, he's got quite a bit of rear end damage on that race car. So an accordion right here at the end of the front straight. We'll see if it happens again this time. You see Digby kind of back off the number 11 of Tyler Seville, one of those Slice Porcupines Phil Warsaw racing machines. They were second through fifth for a little bit, but now they've been broken up by the number 8 of Jimmy McKee, who's worked his way now up into the 4th position. And now Brian Yazik also starting to make some noise as he's trying to get around Tyler Seville. But great run so far here in the early, going for the McKee Lawn Care number 8 machine. Hopefully he can keep that going. We'll have to see how this run continues on. I know we've talked about tires multiple times here tonight, but they're not like most other iRacing series where they can just come down and take tires whenever they want to. They do have a set number of tires. That's only 2 tire changes this week. They got the set they start on, and then they can change to 4 fresh tires twice more during the race, so 3 sets. And there you see a couple of cars rolling back out onto the racetrack. The number 77 of Alex Giese down there on the apron. He basically took what you said, Mitch, and tried to get as much of that damage repaired as possible. But unfortunately for him, still missing a front end, which is not how you want to start this race. And I know, Mitch, you've been there fairly recently, when you just have this long race and you just kind of see what you can get.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you gotta just kind of ride and just see what you can get for points. You know, it's not gonna be a fun night, but I mean, it's, if you pack it up early, you know, definitely you're gonna lose out some spots because some guys are definitely gonna, you know, call it quits. You know, especially if they get wrecked. But I mean, last time going into 2, Doug Mullins and Jimmy McKee got a little loosey-goosey and touched one another, and almost had a big wreck right there.
Yeah, Jimmy McKee in that number 8 machine, he was really trying to get up to the front as quick as he could. He's now slotted back into the 5th position, now under fire from the number 55 of Brian Yazik, the 8 machine on the preferred higher groove. We'll have to see if he can hold on to that spot here. But Greg, here in the early going, a lot of racing, a lot of good racing, which is fantastic to see that these American Sim Racing Series drivers, they're really excited to get some green flag laps in the rear.
And remember, we talked about this in the pre-race, how we were expecting this to be more of what we saw at the start of green flag runs, a lot of slicing and dicing going on. But there are some cars with some damage, and that poses a question I have for Mitch. If you're in the driver's seat, save the 14 of AJ Digby, who has a lot of rear end damage on the 14, what exactly is that doing to the car, and how is AJ Digby going to have to adjust his driving style as opposed to what he was going to be before that?
It's gonna make the car a little loose, especially on corner exit. I mean, realistically, it's better to have you know, rear end damage than front end damage. But I mean, if he just drives it the way he's been driving it, I mean, he should be fine. It depends on how severe his rear end damage is to figure out if it's, you know, gonna hurt him on aero or not. But I mean, looking at his times, it seems like his times are on pace with Lear's. I think he should be fine.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm seeing some pretty severe blocking at certain points in this field.
I'm seeing 3 wide per second.
And the number 55 of Yazik's just going to dive underneath the number 18 and the number 34. He pushed it in a little bit too much, and here comes Kelsey Rogers with the run up off the corner. Kelsey Rogers, great start to this race for that number 34 machine. He's gained 13 positions since the drop of the green flag. So Kelsey Rogers on a tear to try and get to the front. And I'm not all too surprised with that. Kelsey Rogers is one of those drivers who is pretty good at saving tires. He's pretty good at being quiet at a lot of racetracks. There's a lot of times in races where all of a sudden you look up and you go, man, Kelsey Rogers is in the top 5, and we barely mentioned his name today. Very patient driver, and here today showing that here in the early going, that in this long run he's able to start closing in on the front. Looking at the last 5 laps, looks like Krobot, Kelsey Rogers, and Yazik, some of the fastest cars out there on the circuit, but can't cat out the man, who's gotten up into the top 10. And that is Greg Evans in the number 2 machine. He's now moving on up getting around the number 19 and Cody Spiker there. That will give him the 8th position in that number 2 machine. We're on board with him right now. Right in front of him is the number 57 of Craig Stykes. So we've seen it multiple times this season, Greg, that Greg Evans there, very, very, very good at saving his tires. I don't know what his secret is, but here again, starting to move his way forward through the field in this green flag run.
And I don't think he's going to be inclined to reveal his secret anytime soon, Peter, because it is working for him as you see him going to work on Stykes. Real quick, want to give a shout to the guy he just passed for position, Cody Spiker in the 19. He started the race 25th, had already climbed up into the 8th spot. He was the biggest mover there before it. Meanwhile, up front, battled for the lead, beginning to break out Krobach, who's led most of the race so far under heavy pressure from Kelsey Rogers, and Rogers is going to lead the lap there. First lap led in quite some time for Kelsey Rogers, as he's got the HPP teammates behind him before 2 Will Worsler Racing teammates jockey behind hit them, and Rogers takes the lead in turn number 2, and here they come down the backstretch with Kelsey Rogers leading the way, but back come the HPP Fords.
Yeah, here comes the number 72, Michael Krobach, underneath Kelsey Rogers as they dive off into turn number 3. This side-by-side battle for the race lead is not over yet. Rogers gets a good run there right through the center of the corner, got the power down early, and I think Rogers is going to hold him off here just briefly, and Rogers is going to lead another lap. Last time by, lap prior to this one, Kelsey Rogers beat the number 72 to the line by 7/1000ths of a second. This past lap, 43 thousandths of a second. So very, very close up at the front. And look at who has joined this battle. The number 29 machine of Will Worsler back in the show this week after missing 2 weeks ago. That number 29 Slice Porcupine's machine diving down to the inside of the number 72 machine. He's going to pull a little bit of a slide job on the HPPsimulations.com machine and move him now up into second. So we're starting to see some comers and goers here at this point in the race. I'm looking at the charts, and we have had some drivers who have gained, almost 20 spots. We've had some drivers lose 20 or so spots. So definitely a very stratifying race, and we're almost at the 1/3 distance. And Mitch, this racetrack, we've mentioned how important tires are. Do you think we're going to see drivers come down pit road, at the 1/3 mark, around lap number 33, to come get their first set of fresh tires?
I wouldn't say that. Let's see more guys come around, especially, with 2 set of tires. Definitely around 35 to 40 to 45. But if this is how the race is going to be like and strung out single file, there is a good chance we could go green the rest of the way. So depending on when that first stop is, some guys might go longer on their first stop and then try to make the second stop shorter, or some guys might pit early and try to make that second set of tires last a little longer.
Yeah, getting to the first green flag pit stop is always the hardest. Once you get over that hurdle, it seems like the field gets spread out a little bit more due to that pit stop, and it seems to be easier to keep it green. So hopefully we can stay green here as we've now reached the 1/4 race distance. And we got some 3 wide action going off into turn number 1, and here comes the number 2 machine of Greg Evans, who just like that, 2 for 1, he goes from 5th to 3rd in one fell swoop. Now remember, Greg Evans, if you're just now joining us for the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, this race is round 5 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Out of the first 4 races, Greg Evans has won 3 of them, and in the only other one, which was at Talladega, he was runner-up. So he's yet to finish worse than second in these Wheelman Showdown races brought to you by SERVPRO. And definitely he's got his eyes on the prize, because the winner of the Wheelman Showdown actually wins a steering wheel that they can use in their sim rigs. So I'm sure Greg Evans is thinking of that. Probably not right now. I'm sure he's thinking of just getting around the number 29 machine, Will Worsler, outside his front windshield as he runs down the front straight in that number 2 machine. A little bit of a new look. Got T-Rex tape on the hood. Pretty cool to see that. I love it when they have the dinosaurs on the car. Kind of throwback to when Jeff Gordon had a dinosaur on the car. just say that car was legal. Apparently, it was technically legal.
It was
NASCAR,
legal until it wasn't.
NASCAR said we never want to see it again, so they never did.
I want to hit on something. Fastest on the track last lap. That number 2, Greg Evans. He's coming.
Greg Evans has entered the chat, ladies and gentlemen, because here he comes putting pressure on Will Worsler for the 2nd position. And Peter, he's got T-Rex tape on it this week, where he had duct tape last week. So would you say that's an upgrade as well? Not just the number, but an upgrade on the...
I think it's a little bit tougher, but I'll tell you what, T-Rex tape, duct tape, either one, they get the job done. And Greg Evans now watching a battle for the race lead that's broken out right in front of him, because here comes Will Worsler in the Slice Porcupines machine underneath the number 34 of Kelsey Rogers side by side in turn number 1 and 2. Rogers uses that high line, keeps the momentum up. It looks like he's going to clear the number 29 briefly. Is that going to allow the number 2 of Greg Evans to fill that void? Not quite. The 29 of Worsler sails off into turn number 3, trying to get underneath that number 34. Man, Will Worsler just dove it off into that corner. It stuck, but here comes the number 2 of Greg Evans. He's looking to take this 3 wide for the race lead, Greg.
3 wide. He was thinking outside, backed out of it, and this is allowing Krobach and Yazik to close back up. Just that little let off of the throttle allowed the 55 and the 72 to come right back up, as now Evans gets up alongside Will Worsler into number 29, who, boy, I think Will Worsler's happy to be back behind the wheel of a race car here in the ASRS series. He is running 2nd, now 3rd, as Evans is able to clear him down the backstretch. Worsler, after taking the week off last week, getting back in the thick of things right away, 2 weeks ago, putting pressure on for the lead from Kelsey Rogers. But you saw it right there, just how important the draft was, as Evans was able to get around Worsler there on the backstretch. And here he is going into turn number 1. Ding, ding, ding. New leader, Greg Evans in the 2.
If he can clear the number 34, that is. Rogers trying to hold tough around the outside, and look at Evans getting a little bit loose coming out of turn number 2. That's going to give the 29 of Will Worsler a run to his outside as well. We'll go back and see that on the 3 wide TV replay on board with Greg Evans. And just watch this, folks, coming out of the corner. There was a definite slide. He's well down there on the racetrack. Might have hit that seam just a little bit and just didn't even flinch, just kept it going. There was definitely a little bit of a yaw angle to that number 2 machine. He did lose that 2nd spot to the number 29 of Will Worsler. And here comes Worsler again trying to take the lead from Kelsey Rogers. So it's Kelsey Rogers versus the field right now. Seems like everyone's trying to throw everything but the kitchen sink at that number 34 machine, but Worsler might have made it stick this time. He's almost cleared him. If he can stay right there, I think he can just send it off into turn number 3, pull the slide job, and make the pass. But no, Kelsey Rogers still holding tough around the high side. But Worsler gets a run through the middle. And just like that, Worsler is able to clear the number 34. And here comes the number 2, Greg Evans, back on Kelsey Rogers. So this is a side-by-side battle for 2nd. This has been some fantastic racing here in the early going, Greg. And look at the number 55 and Yazik now all over the back bumper of that number 2 machine. Not going anywhere.
Yazik thought about 3 wide for a split second, but had to back out of it because Evans got a run on Worsler there, and Rogers was able to use a little bit of side draft there to cut off the 55's momentum. And now Yazik getting up on the bumper now of Greg Evans to try to give him some assistance on the inside as Worsler sails it off in the 3. Greg Evans with another great run in the number 2. He's door to door with Worsler through 3 and 4. Here they come off of turn number 4. Yazik peaks low. Evans goes to throw the block there. They come side by side at the line. I believe Evans will have it at the line. Yes, he will. But look at the 34 Rogers get right up on the back bumper of Will Worsler to be able to push him back to the nose in front. But Evans fights back on the inside. Meanwhile, Doug Mullins peaking high on Yazik now. Yazik thought about making a move for the lead a moment ago. Now he's in trouble of falling out of the top 5.
Yeah, how fast these laps tick by and how fast you can lose positions and how fast can you gain positions. I mean, we've seen some drivers here in the first 35 laps go all the way from 25th now up into the top 10. Drivers like Greg Evans, he started 18th. Now he is your race leader. He is going to be able to clear the number 29 machine here. So he's the outright race leader here. But we are still side by side for 2nd. Rogers underneath the 29 of Worcester. These two cars have been glued together for about the last 10 laps or so. And look at Worcester. He's going to try and do the over-under here. Rogers used that low line, but had to check up a little bit up off the corner. 29's got to run once again, so here we go. This is some fantastic racing. I gotta say, this has been one of the best races these drivers have put on all season long, and so much side-by-side action. It just doesn't seem like they're getting away from one another here in the early going.
No, they're really not, Peter. It's been so great to watch it unfold here in Michigan. We're coming up a little bit on halfway, so we're about 13 or so laps away from halfway. And Mitch, you said they have 2 sets of tires available. When do you think we might start thinking about green flag pit stops here if this thing stays green much?
I would probably say within the next 3 or 4 laps, you might see some guys come in, you know, maybe even 40, 45. You know, might see some guys pit on lap 50 and just, you know, take that first set and then just kind of bide their time and wait. You know, hopefully they can get a caution and have that last set for, you know, maybe a late race shootout.
And that's one of the fun things about having the tire limits is if you're well back in the pack and if you just decide to throw the dice and you get a little bit lucky, when we saw it with the number 1 machine, Jason Stewart, back at Charlotte, you could end up possibly walking away with a win, and not just a win, a pretty easy win if it just so happens to go your way perfectly. And it's great to see that, just that extra element of strategy in these races. I know it's something that Jim Foose has been wanting for some time, and now that iRacing has added as an official feature, we've been running it all season as a kind of an unofficial feature. It's been admin control, but now that's an official feature in iRacing that you can have. It's going to be great to see that on the racetrack. Hopefully, at some point this season, we'll be able to bring you the graphics to show you how many sets of tires the cars still have left. Unfortunately, don't have that quite yet, but we do have, I think, the first taker on pit road. I believe it's the 01 machine of Brad Lee. He's well back in the pack, but he's going to come down to his pit box here. Trying to get some fresh tires on it earlier to see if he can make up some ground, Mitch.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work out, especially being that far back. You know, we'll see what happens. You know, maybe he could get a lucky caution and, you know, try to see if he could get up in the trap zone these guys lap down.
Here we have a battle still going on for second. The number 2 of Greg Evans has checked out just a little bit at the front. This is the biggest lead we have seen all day long, and it's only about 0.4 of a second. Meanwhile, Kelsey Rogers and Will Worcester still glued together on the racetrack, battling for that second spot.
Here we go, guys. Guys are starting to pit.
Yeah, we'll have to see who's going to come down this lap. Is anyone going to dive down? None of your leaders are. Look, Jason Stewart is, the checkered flag PC's Toyota Camry, so he will hit the pit road speed 55 miles an hour. That number 1 machine mid-pack got down to pit road pretty nicely. And Mitch, you and I know this is a pretty fast racetrack. Getting onto pit road here is also pretty tricky just because of the angle that pit road is relative to the racetrack. How do you, as a race car driver, approach getting to pit road here in Michigan?
I wouldn't say it's one of the toughest pit road, but it's not one of the easiest pit roads. It's really hard getting on pit road here. I mean, for me, I kind of like to take it easy on pit road. I still know some guys really like to maximize their pit entry, but don't be surprised if some guys that are coming off the track come down pit road and lose it coming into the pits.
It's just how much it flattens out when you get to your pit box, the pit road, that all of a sudden the car can break away from you very, very quickly. We saw a little bit of 3 wide action there, a little bit further back in the pack. Tony Schoen, James Lorello, Richard Stallings dicing it up. That's around the 20th position or so. Tony Schoen is currently scored in the 17th spot in that number 33 machine. There's the number 1, Jason Stewart, making it back out onto the racetrack. We'll see if any cars decide to blend off onto pit road this time. So far, no takers this time by, so we will go another lap before seeing a couple of other cars head to pit road. Is that someone who just missed getting to pit road a little bit further back?
Yeah.
Tim Knott just got loose in the number 41 machine. Dust Devil on the hood of that machine this week, doing battle with the number 44 of Michael Whiting, Brookside Equipment Sales Machine. He looks like he is off the pace currently in that number 44 car. Got a little bit of right side damage. So that is definitely affecting that number 44 machine, because Michael Whiting, definitely one of the faster drivers in the league, and he's currently scored in the 28th position. Here we go, on board with the number 1 of Jason Stewart. And now, Greg, it's going to be interesting to see. He's got fresh tires, cars around him do not. How important are those fresh tires? I think we'll find out right here.
Yeah, we're going to see how important they are in the next couple of laps, Peter, because the longer these guys stay out on this green flag run, the more ground they're going to lose to those drivers on the fresher tires. Granted, they'll be able to make it back up here momentarily if they stay out there much longer. Once they do come in, they'll be able to make that much ground right back up as they have that many lap fresher tires. But I'm honestly surprised we haven't really seen anybody up front dug in yet. I figured we may have seen at least someone around maybe 6th through maybe 10th come in to try to get the rest of the field off sequence and try to capitalize on them, but kind of surprised we haven't seen that yet. So a lot of guys sticking to their guns right now for their strategy, and we're on lap 45. I'm wondering if some of these guys up front maybe thinking what Mitch was talking about, maybe trying to make it to lap 50 and trying to make this a one-stopper.
Got a few takers coming in.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not they can make it to the halfway. Oh, we got one car going up the racetrack right now. Woody Mahan in the number 84 is in the outside retaining wall. He's going to gather it back up, but looked like he might have got a little bit of a shot there in the corner. Might have been trying to come down pit road. We do have a couple takers, Ty Hester and Grant Brown. Let's see what happened here at 84 in the high side. Grant Brown on the inside. Oh, and that just looked like some really, really bad neck code, or maybe just got up out of a groove, and boy, oh boy, Woody Mahan getting the bad end of that stick. Ty Hester on pit road right now in the number 36 machine. Glassdoor Brewing on the hood of that car. He missed his pit box, had to reverse into it. Right in front of him, Grant Brown in the number 52 is down and away. Chris Stouffer and Chris Hughes also down and away. Meanwhile, your leaders continue to stay out here at Michigan International Speedway. Kelsey Rogers has actually tracked down the number 2 of Greg Evans, as has the number 29 of Will Worcester. So they're all once again bunched back together up the front. Greg, with pit stops looming here quickly, this is going to be interesting to see who blinks first out of these top 3.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on this battle. Kelsey Rogers is really pushing it right now, trying to get back in front of Greg Evans. So I'm wondering just how much left he has left in the tank as far as tire wear goes. Not as much fuel per se, but I'm wondering just what he's got left in that 34 car tire wise, because he has been pushing it hard, and we're starting to see the problems of pushing it so hard. There is just one little slip up, and all of a sudden here's Will Worcester going for the 2nd position. All 3 of these cars have not pitted yet, and most of the field's still staying out. These guys are running on 48 lap old tires right now, with a few drivers in the back having already pitted, trying to make their way back up. This is going to change the complexion of this race for a little bit, with these drivers being so far off as far as tire strategy goes. I'm wondering just how long these guys are intending to make it. I think they're trying to go to lap 50 like Mitch Brown said you could possibly do. Looks like these guys are thinking that that's what they're going to try to do, and make this a one-stopper and have that 2nd set of tires in the bank if you get a late caution, maybe a 10-lap shootout or so. Maybe they're banking on a late caution to see if they can use the 2nd set there.
Well, what's going to be really interesting, Greg, is the fact that even if these leaders can make it to lap 50, 51, remember we had that that caution lap. A few laps of caution there in our one and only caution that we've had so far. So they might have saved a couple laps of fuel in doing so, maybe 2 or 3 laps of fuel. What about those drivers, though, who came down pit road? As we got leaders coming down pit road. Here comes Greg Evans in the number 2. Looks like Jason Stewart in the number 1. Remember, he's on fresher tires. Yeah, oh, look at the 34. Kelsey Rogers. And that's not what you want to have happen. You hate to see that.
Yeah, that's his car's killed. It's grabbing now.
So just like that, you can go from a contender to being well off the pace, and Kelsey Rogers just locked up the brakes just a little bit. Luckily didn't run into the back of that number 2 of Greg Evans. He had it, tried to woe it up, heavy contact with the inside wall on pit road. Let's watch this on the 3-wide TV replay. You see Greg Evans well on the brakes. You have to get down to 55 miles an hour before the yellow cones, and he was definitely not. So he might also have a speeding penalty on top of that to make matters worse. But Kelsey Rogers, one of the fastest drivers in this race.
Someone just caught the cone coming in. I believe it was the 29 of Will Worsler. Caught the cone coming down pit road this time as the rest of the leaders now begin to pit. Someone caught the cone. I think it was the 29. I'm not sure.
We'll have to see if we can see what happened there. Ooh, looks like it was the 04. Mark Myers right behind him who caught that yellow cone. So not 100% sure whether or not that will be a penalty. We'll have to see if iRacing assesses that hold penalty on pit road. Looks like Mark Myers is being held in his pit box. So tough break for him in that 04 machine. Here comes the number 57, Craig Stykes, on pit road right behind him. Doug Mullins, the number 18 machine. So these folks made it to the halfway distance, 50 laps to go. But let's talk about some of the drivers who came down pit road earlier in this race. Drivers like Tony Schoen in the number 33 machine. He pitted with the on lap number 10 or so when we had that first caution. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he is playing the long game. John Jenkins in the number 7 machine as well in that same category. So right now your race leader is the number 55 of Brian Yazik. He's peeled off and coming down pit road with Tyler Seville. So those are your first and second place drivers. Now it goes to John Jenkins in the number 7 machine. He has been on the racetrack laps since pits. Let's see if we can pull this up on the screen for you. He's been out there on the racetrack now for about 42 laps since he was on pit road when we had that first caution. He did not take tires that first time down pit road. He took fuel. I think he was thinking, I might be in a window where I can make it on one stop from that point. He only has to make it about 5 or so more laps until he's effectively split the last 90 laps or so in half. So if this race stays green, we could be talking about John Jenkins at the end of this race. I was thinking a little bit earlier that it was surprising that John Jenkins wasn't making his way through the field as quickly as I kind of expected him to, especially on that long green flag run. But I think John Jenkins has some slightly different strategy to the rest of the field, Mitch.
Yeah, he tried to pit early and try to see if he can make it on fuel, but I'm just looking at Greg Evans. He's already passed Jason Stewart, who pitted about 10 laps earlier than him, so he's going to cycle out as the leader. And then Will Worsler, who he was battling for up front, is about 4 seconds behind, so he's going to have a decent amount of gap to the next guy that has equal tires than him. So it's, unless a caution is going to happen, it's going to be tough for someone to track down Greg Evans.
We will wait and see. I do know that Greg Evans, but based on how many laps he's ran first time, he won't be able to make it to the end on this tank of fuel. He's already been out there now for 5 laps. So just a few laps short of halfway. Plus, remember, you have to figure in that caution that we did have earlier in the race. John Jenkins in the number 7 machine. I thought he might have been trying to get down to pit road there, but the number 24 of Alan Young kind of filled the hole right behind him. We'll have to make sure that John Jenkins can get around here. He is your race leader. Presumably, this next stop will be his final pit stop if we remain green, and you also have the fresher tires on that number 7 machine, which will be to his advantage. There's the number 50, Christopher Bouchard, right behind him, one of his Momentum Sim Racing teammates. Bouchard also came down pit road under that first caution that we had around lap number 10, so he's in the same boat as Jenkins, Tony Schoen as well, John Broussard, Sam Crow, Michael Whiting, quite a few drivers in that group of people. And right now, John Jenkins has 27 seconds over Greg Evans in that number 2 machine, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Now number 7 will be on fresher tires and presumably will be good to go to the end when he comes down pit road eventually. Not quite sure when, Greg.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on that to see just how long they can make it, because this may work out in their favor if we stay green the rest of the way, like we've talked about. Jenkins leading the way right now for starting 37th. His teammate Chris Bouchard started right alongside him in 38th. Neither driver qualified. They both took provisionals to start this race off, and here they are running 1-2 right now. I wonder if maybe they just decide, you know what, let's just try it out and see what happens here on the initial start, kind of hanging in the back there, and they caught an early caution. I wonder if that was what they were banking on. They might have been banking on that early caution, which they got to be able to come in, top off on fuel, and be able to go as far as they have.
And how many times have real-life NASCAR come to the Michigan International Speedway and seen a fuel mileage race? A lot. This is one of the racetracks that you kind of circle and say, fuel mileage. And you write that on the board. We might see a fuel mileage race here tonight at Michigan. But as things continue to cycle through, Greg Evans now up to the 5th position. Sam Crow in the number 5 machine, sporting a new number this week. Let's see if we can get an eye on Sam. There he is, coming across the start-finish line right there. A little bit of a throwback scheme on the old Crow Sim Shop number 5 this week. Good look. You see 89 Speed Shop on the side as well. I love that paint scheme. That paint scheme's pretty darn cool, Sam. Great to see both the new number and the new look on that car this week. John Broussard right in front of him, about 5 seconds up the road in the number 53 machine, about 3.5 seconds off your current race leader, the number 7 of John Jenkins. You see him getting passed by all these cars on fresher tires. He's yet to come down pit road with 42 laps to go. Kind of surprised to see, Greg, that drivers like John Jenkins, Christopher Bouchard, and John Broussard have yet to come down pit road, because you would think that the window is open and these drivers will be able to make it to the end from here.
I think they might just be trying to get as much as they possibly can in the bank and just confirm that, okay, we only have to do a sprint from here on. So I'm wondering if they're just trying to stretch as long as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And they might even catch a caution here, because, well, just like because if they could have caught a caution there, we're at the point that maybe everyone else would have pitted, because you knew they were going to be on fresh tires and they were going to be able to throw everyone else off sequence and make them pit, but that goes out the window now.
Oh man, the 5 of Sam Crow there, missing his pit box, and Mitch, that is one of the last things you want to have happen on pit road, is miss your pit box.
That is a killer to miss your pit box, especially if you're trying to stay up front and try to get a good finish.
And I think what happened there was he didn't realize he was that close to the end of pit road and just had to try and lock it up and get it turned. He's finally going to drive out of his pit box, but this will now pretty much give the lead back to the number 2 machine, as the number 50 of Bouchard will be the last car to come down pit road. Bouchard made it exactly 50 laps on that tank of fuel. So remember, there was a couple of caution laps in there. Definitely he will be good to go to the end. Big question now is, will Greg Evans have the ability to save a little bit of fuel to try and make it about 51 or 52 laps to see the checkered flag if this stays green? I say that, it's only 39 laps from now, as we now have a battle here for the 2nd position brewing between Will Warser and Craig Seitz. Mitch?
Well, we do. I think those Will Warser race teammates, I don't think they're going to really battle with each other. They're going to just try to work together and see if they can catch Greg Evans. They do have a little bit fresher tires than them, even though it's 1 or 2 laps. But I don't think they're really going to battle with each other, because that's just going to bring in Jimmy McKee in the picture.
Yeah, Jimmy McKee and that McKee Lawn Care Services number 8 machine currently running in the 4th position. Great run for him tonight. Started in the 12th position, now solidly inside the top 5. You can see those time deltas to the number 2 machine of Greg Evans on the left-hand side of your screen. And like I mentioned, once you get to that first green flag stop, it can be very stratifying for a race. It can really spread out the field, so much so that we don't have all too many battles for position inside the top 10, but this is a great time to go through the field. And Greg, why don't you start us off with your race leader, Greg Evans?
And Greg Evans, love the first name, and I love the new car that he's driving right now. And that T-Rex tape number 2 has been on a tear all day after really kind of messing up qualifying. Uncharacteristic of the start as deep as he did, 18th position, but he has fought his way up and just slowly but surely picked his spot and has slowly been gaining even more and more over the Wilkesboro Racing teammates. Greg Evans once again leading the most laps here today as he just tries to click him off and try to save enough fuel to make it to the end, taking a little bit of a risk there with this perhaps one-stop strategy if we stay green. So Greg Evans keeping our eye on the fuel mileage of the 2 car. In second is the number 29, Will Wursler, and we talked about how happy he is to be back in a race car after missing 2 weeks ago due to unforeseen circumstances there. So Wursler back in the number 29, having a great run. Has led a couple of laps there, running in the second position with his teammate Craig Stykes right behind him in the 57. Great job by Craig Stykes hanging in there today. Started 8th, running in the 3rd position. Doing a great job hanging out there with his boss, Will Wursler, right there in 3rd. And Peter, that's your top 3. Check in with 4th.
Yeah, in the 4th position is Jimmy McKee. We're just talking about him. Started this race in 12th, now running in 4th. McKee Lawn Care Services on the hood. Just kind of put that number 8 machine up near the front, keeping it clean. In that first run, we saw him dart out up into the top 5. Very, very quick off out of the blocks, but then lost a couple of spots towards the back end of that run. We'll have to see if McKee can save his tires a little bit better in this second long green flag run. Right behind him was the driver who did save his tires pretty well in that first green flag run. That's the number 55 of Brian Yazik. He's been up near the front for a good portion of this race. And once again, he's one of those drivers, kind of like the number 34 that I talked about earlier, although I really jinxed the number 34 of Kelsey Rogers. He's one of those drivers who likes to keep it clean and just all of a sudden creep up to the front towards the end. So keep an eye on that number 55 HPPsimulation.com machine. Behind him in the 6th position is the number 11 of Tyler Seville, and he's right behind the number 55 of Yazik. Currently, Tyler Seville and Yazik, they both pitted on the same lap about 15 laps ago from now, so very similar tires and also very similar lap times between them, both running about 0.03 of a second apart over the last couple of laps. Seville just closing in just a little bit on the number 55 as we've just had a pass for the 4th position. Yazik just took it away from Jimmy McKee, and here comes Tyler Seville trying to take the 5th position away from Jimmy McKee. But right behind them is the number 72 of Michael Krobach. There he is. He's trying to catch up to this battle in front of him because Jimmy McKee did just get past in turn number 1 and 2 behind the number 11 machine. So McKee will be the next car in front of this A2Psimulation.com machine. And Krobach, remember, he was your pole sitter here today. He pitted 17.5 laps ago. He's got a little bit older tires than drivers like Yazik and Seville, so he has a little bit of work to do to close in on the 55 and the 11. Behind them, Ty Hester in the number 36 machine, keeping it nice and clean here tonight. Oh, as I say that, wow, talk about commentator's curse. Hits the outside retaining wall right there, and tough break for Ty because had a clean race car, and Mitch got a lot of right side damage now. How is that going to affect this number 36 machine?
That's going to affect him badly. It's going to make the car very tight, and it's going to hurt him on aero too. You know, I feel bad for Ty because, you know, he's a good guy, know him pretty well, and he just sort of, he always just gets like, he has these clean races and just one little mistake he made, and it just, you know, just all goes downhill for him. It's a tough break for Ty Hester tonight.
Yeah, Ty Hester, he was one of the early adopters down pit road in that number 36 machine. He just got passed by the number 14, the Twitter verified AJ Digby, who has moved up into the 9th position. But what about this driver right here, John Jenkins in 8th, folks? Remember, we were telling you about Jenkins possibly, you know, being able to make it to the end on fuel, or being able to make it to the end on fuel. That's 100% confirmed. He is charging his way through the field. He's on fresher tires than all of the cars in front of him. In fact, Jenkins has only 10 laps on his tires. Compare that with Greg Evans, who has 21 laps on his tires. And right now, this number 7 machine is closing in on the race lead by about a second a lap, which is insane. John Jenkins, over the last 5 laps, his average lap time has been a 40.022. Compare that to Greg Evans's 40.963. So that is absolutely huge. And Jenkins will continue his march to the front. There's A.J. Digby inside the top 10, although about to lose the 9th position to the number 50 of Christopher Bouchard. Bouchard in that race car, well, Bouchard is actually being shown 1 lap down. I'm kind of surprised by that. I wonder if there was a penalty. There had to have been a penalty for the number 50 of Bouchard. He must have been speeding or something because he had a pit time of 55 seconds. So I thought that was a pass for position, but Bouchard definitely getting the bad end of that stick and will be currently being scored 1 lap down. So that is just about your top 10. Your 10th place driver is the number 24 of Alan Young. Back up in the front. Greg Evans still leading here, Greg.
Yeah, Evans continuing to lead, and the gap is really staying the same between himself and the Will Worsler teammates of Worsler and Stykes. No one's really gained, no one's really lost. They're kind of just hanging out a little bit under 2.5 seconds. The margin right now is Evans just trying to quick laps away, but Peter, we've been keeping an eye on the fuel mileage of that number 2 car, and do you think right now with a 2.3 second lead over Will Worsler, no pressure out the back, do you think Evans can afford to kind of let them close in a little bit, saving some fuel here and there, letting it off the throttle a little bit earlier? We know he's going to have to work kind of hard to save 51 laps worth of fuel, so do you think right about now is when you think you're going to start seeing him lift a little bit earlier, not quite getting the throttle a little bit, and allow the Will Worsler cars to kind of creep in a little bit there?
Well, Mitch can probably back me up on this. This is a racetrack, especially with this package, very, very difficult to save fuel because you're so fast around this racetrack. You're barely getting off the throttle in the corner with all the downforce that these cars have. And because of that, it just makes it so difficult to save fuel at tracks like this, tracks like, Daytona. At least at Daytona you have a little bit of draft, but Greg Evans out there as your race leader, he's not getting the draft off of anyone to help save that fuel. And Mitch, I think it would be very difficult to save fuel here and at least run consistent competitive lap times.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be hard too. I think that's the last thing he's worried about. But if I'm John Jenkins, I want this thing to stay green because the lap times I'm looking at, it's starting to even off just a little bit, but he can see that leader, that number 2 car, and he's just licking his chops and he's just saying, stay green, because the longer, if this thing stays green the rest of the way, I expect that 7 car to be towards the front.
And the crazy thing about it is, he's closing in on Jimmy McKee here for the 6th position, just dove underneath McKee in turn number 3 and 4 for that spot. And like he said, he can see the race lead. He can see Greg Evans up there, and Jenkins knows he can stay out. He doesn't have to come down pit road, and he knows a lot of the cars in front of him do. I mean, that's a double whammy. Not only do you have a good spot, and you can see the race lead, but you don't have to crawl down pit road at 55 miles an hour at all. So yeah, like you said, just wants this race to stay green in that Max Pappas Innovations machine, and came into tonight as your points leader, and he's going to take that spot away from Jimmy McKee. So move Jenkins up into the 6th position. Next car for position will be Tyler Seville in the number 11 Slice Porcupines machine, and Ryan Yazik in front of him in the 4th position, the HPVsimulations.com Ford. And unfortunately, looks like Woody Mahan has taken his car behind the wall and will be the 2nd retirement of the race. Alex Giese in the number 77 machine. He pulled off the racetrack 55 laps ago and was the 1st retirement of the race. Also getting word possibly that the number 52 of Grant Brown was black flagged possibly for connection issues. He is sitting in his pit box right now in that race car. We'll have to see whether or not he can get back out there onto the racetrack, but unfortunately losing a ton of time. And I know, Greg, we talked about Grant Brown having a few good runs as of late, but it looks like that streak will come to an end here tonight.
Yeah, tough run here tonight for Grant Brown. Started off by not getting the qualifying lap that he wanted. So 52 of Grant Brown definitely having a day that he would like to forget here in the Motor City, as he is just going to park it for the day. Tough break for him, not the way he wanted his day to go. Meanwhile, checking in back up front, looks like what we were talking about might be beginning to happen as the Worsler teammates are closing in now on Greg Evans, as they have shaved about 0.8 of a second off of the lead over the last 3 or 4 laps or so. So it looks like Greg Evans is beginning to go into conservation mode here and there to try to settle things down and make it the rest of the way. And this is also allowing Brian Yazik and Tyler Seville, who happens to be another Will Worsler car, to creep back up into the picture as well. Suddenly, we're going to have a 4-car battle going on for second before too long.
Yeah, Greg Evans, folks, he's clutching it in the corner. He's just putting that car, not into neutral, but he's putting down the clutch. You can hear it right here. Listen to that car. It just goes silent for just a brief second. He's trying to save as much fuel as he can, and we will start to see the lap times really suffer for that number 2 machine, especially compared to like John Jenkins, who can run it as hard as he can here towards the end. Mitch, you mentioned that those lap times between John Jenkins and your race leaders were kind of leveling off. Well, they really have, because Evans in that number 2 machine last time by ran a 41.0. Compare that with the number 7, who ran a 40.959. So only about a tenth of a second faster was John Jenkins that last lap. And that's a bit surprising, considering that number 7 has 10 lap fresher tires. But is that something that you see with this current tire model, that they can level off like this during a run?
They can level off. I think John was just trying to, especially him pitting so late, he had to go hard as he can, especially with those new tires, to try to make up that gap as early as possible. So I do think, they do level off. It's just that he had to push his tires a lot harder than, say Greg Evans or Will Worsler, Craig Stites, who they knew they were going to be, up the front, and they knew that they were going to be in the top 5, so they could kind of just ride their own pace instead of John Jenkins.
That is true. I mean, you do have to be mindful of track position. If a caution was to come out right now, John Jenkins would still be up near the front. His strategy might not work out the way he might have liked it to work out, but he would still be up there well inside the top 10. And if laps continue to go like they are now, Jenkins' fastest car on the racetrack that last time by, he might even be able to get into the top 5 before other cars have to come down pit road. Well, I don't know what that was. A little bit of some microphone issues or something up here in the 3Y TV broadcast booth. Hopefully you still have your ears after that. But to tell you what, John Jenkins in that number 7 machine definitely closing in. But we have a great battle here between the number 29, the 55, the number 57, and the 11. A couple of those Will Worsler machines once again working their way together on the racetrack. We saw them 4 out of the top 5 earlier. Well, now they're 3 out of the top 5. But here comes Yazik in at number 55, HVPsimulations.com machine down to the inside, trying to take the spot away from Craig Stites. And Greg, that number 55 starting to come alive here late in the run. That's what we saw in the first long green flag run that we had.
Yeah, Brian Yazik starting to really creep up into the picture here, Peter. And we've seen this out of Yazik in the past. He's able to come alive late in the run. So we'll see if he can capitalize on it. Remember, he was up contending for the lead before that round of pit stops, and it took him a little bit to get back going again. But he seems to really be coming alive here late as he's trying to hold off Tyler Seville and get Craig Stites at the same time. But what that's doing is that's allowing the Worsler teammates to work together here and try to get him freight trained back there. And it seems to not really be working out for either driver, as they're kind of just side drafting off of each other right now, Yazik and Sykes in the 55 and the 57. And what that's doing, if you notice, is allowing Will Worsler to pull away a little bit. And while all this is going on, they are still closing a gap on Greg Evans. So Evans is definitely playing the conservation game right now. Worsler is closing in. He's trying to reel in the 2 of Evans and maybe try to catch him sleeping here.
And remember, Craig Stites was actually, Brian Yazik and Tyler Seville were the last 2 drivers out of the current top 5 to pit. They still pitted quite a few laps before the number 7 of John Jenkins, though. So out of the top 5 currently, you'd expect to see the number 11 and the number 55 to go the furthest without having to save fuel. So we had the question in the chat, the DMLC Racing channel, asking, I wonder if Yazik has enough fuel. Well, I think We're going to find out here shortly because laps are winding down. Only 16 laps to go, 32 miles here for round 5 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. The Motor City 200 here from Michigan International Speedway. Round 15 of the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series for these American Sim Racing Series boys. And there's the number 55. Yazek still trying to use that low line. He's going to be able to cut up in front of the number 11 of Seville, cut him off. He's been trying to use that low line. Oh man, Yazek with a late lunge down to the bottom had to cut in front of that number 11 machine. And Yazek still trying to get underneath Craig Stykes here. I wonder if Yazek thinks that he's good to the end from this moment in time, and whether or not he can start making some passes for position, because he knows that if the other cars around him can make it on fuel, he's going to have to make those passes to get to the race lead if he's going to want to close in on Greg Evans. Greg Evans still up at the front, clutching the car, trying to save enough fuel in that T-Rex Ferociously Strong Tape number 2. This battle here for second isn't going down anyway, and look who's closing in. That number 7 machine of John Jenkins, Mitch.
Closing on, and he's just, cue the Jaws theme, he is slowly working his way. These guys battling side by side they are not helping each other, because that's just allowing Greg Evans to save a lot more fuel, than he can. And I heard in the driver's chat 3-on-1. It doesn't help Yazek because he's got 3 Will Worcester guys he's trying to pass. So I mean, you know, Yazek's just in a hole. I think the smart thing to do is just kind of ride behind these guys and, you know, bide his time.
And now Will Worcester, the number 29 machine, has fallen to the back of that little Will Worcester racing train. He was second a couple laps ago. Now he's in 4th. He was actually the first Will Worcester racing machine on pit road. He pitted 1 lap later, though, than Greg Evans in the number 2 machine. So he's got a little bit better fuel number to hit than the number 2 machine, but he's not clutching like Greg Evans is, your current race leader. So this is super exciting. I love to see these fuel mileage races kind of work out like this, because we don't really know who is going to get to the checkered flag first. If you're in the chat right now, we're coming up on 11 laps to go this time by. I want to hear who you think will get to the checkered flag first, because I think right now it's kind of a roll of the dice between these top 5. Who has enough fuel?
8 pitting.
Is that Jimmy McKee coming down pit road?
Yeah, I don't think he could have made it. It's so hard, you know. I think John Jenkins has this thing in the bag, unless we get a late caution, or Greg Evans saved enough. I just think, you know, John played the strategy, you know, that early caution helped out, and he was so far in the back, he had nothing to lose. Come in, take the fuel, and that helped him out, stretch his run out a little longer than these guys, and you know, I think that might be the winner, right? That might be the winning move right there.
Greg Evans does have a little bit of help out there on the racetrack right now. You've seen him catch up to the number 28 of Troy Haight. Well, he's drafting behind that number 28 machine now. He's trying to save fuel by staying right behind that number 28 machine. He's still clutching the car going off into the corner, but using that little bit of draft will help the fuel mileage of that race car just a little bit, because he can just breathe the throttle at the end of the straightaway and maintain that speed. But we'll have to see whether or not that will help that number 2 car make it to the end. Jason Stewart, the number 1 machine, he's down in the 23rd position. I believe he's currently being scored the first car 1 lap down. We do have 22 cars on the lead lap. Troy Haight right in front of your race leader is the last car on the lead lap in the P&N water filter Chevy Camaro. Tim Knott in the number 41 machine is a little bit further back from Jason Stewart, trying to see if he can close in on him for that lucky dog spot. You see the number 28, though, of Troy Haight going a lap down, so he will be the lucky dog if a caution were to come out at this present moment in time. Trying to see if any other movers are starting to make their way forward. AJ Digby in the number 14 machine. Great showing for him here today in his Premier Series debut, at least his Premier Series debut after receiving the Premier Series license. He's currently scored in the 11th position, right behind Tony Schoen. And what a great day this has been for Tony Schoen. Really, Tony Schoen synonymous with open wheel Indy cars, but here today inside the top 10, he's one of those drivers who is good on fuel as well, trying to work his way to the back bumper of the number 24 machine of Young, who sits John Broussard in the number 50. He sits in the 8th position. He's one of the drivers who is good on to the end. And right in front of him, Michael Krobach, your pole sitter, in 7th. As John Jenkins, folks, he got around Will Warser pretty quickly, and he's closed in on Brian Yazik. So Jenkins now inside the top 5, and Greg, he's only got 8 laps to take the lead. Do you think that these drivers in front of him are saving enough fuel?
We'll see. It's hard to tell right now, Peter, because they've been pushing it so hard in that battle for position. I don't know if they were able to save enough fuel. So I honestly couldn't tell you. We'll see here momentarily as he catches up to Seville and Yazik and gets a good run on Yazik here on the outside. Great run here by John Jenkins, giving a push up here to Tyler Seville. And I don't know if these guys saved enough fuel. It's going to be close.
It is going to be very, very close. It looks like Greg Evans is no longer clutching it in that number 2 machine.
Yeah.
So has he hit his magic number to make it to the end?
I don't know. I know one thing. Will Borsler is going into fuel con mode. He backed it off a lot. So it didn't help them that he was battling so hard up there with his teammate. So he's definitely trying to really back it off right now and try to save and try to make it the rest of the way.
Jamie McKee in the number 8 machine, he was one of those cars that just came down pit road. He got 4 fresh tires on that race car, and looks like he's going to get around the number 28 machine of Troy Haight right here to now be in the lucky dog spot. But McKee will get his lap back the hard way here shortly. And is Krobach coming down pit road?
He's battling. He's getting up there. I think maybe Krobach, he must have saved something. Maybe saved some fuel, but because he's making a charge. I think these guys in front of him are saving their fuel. Maybe Krobach might make it the rest of the way.
It is going to be interesting. John Jenkins got around Brian Yazik in the number 55 machine, so moved the number 7 up into 4th. But Yazik's trying to come back at him here on the inside groove. We'll have only 4 more laps to go, 8 more miles around this 2-mile D-shaped oval here when we get to the stripe. And look at the Will Warser Racing machines getting close with one another. Pete Baskins in the number 27 machine almost took it 4 wide there, as the number 1 of Jason Stewart down there on the inside. Boy, oh boy, this is some crazy action right up here at the front. Looks like the number 1 of Stewart. Does he have fresh tires on that number 1 machine? Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, that's not what John Jenkins wants to see here.
Greg's kidding.
Oh wow, so your
Cannot
race
make it.
leader can't make it on fuel. He tried.
Yeah, he tried. He tried as best as he can, and I really think that John Jenkins won this race with this call, because now he can make it the rest of the way, and you know, I hate it for Greg, because he had this race in the bag if that he could make it on fuel, but you know, it just didn't work out, and there's nothing you can really do.
It's not over yet. Tyler Seville, Craig Stykes drafting with each other right now. They're trying to hang on and save fuel as well. So can they make it on fuel as well? Brian Yazik up here in the 3rd position. I like what the Will Borsler teammates are doing right now. Working together, drafting with each other. That saves a little bit of fuel here and there, especially if you're in the position of the 57 of Stykes.
And remember, I believe it was the number 11 of Seville. He pitted about 3 laps after who was then your race leader, the number 2 of Greg Evans. So that means we can at least see Seville and Stykes go about 2 or 3 more laps if they get the same fuel mileage as the number 2 did. But like you said, Greg, they've been drafting each other a lot, and that means they've been saving fuel working together.
Yeah, they're able to let off the throttle a little bit earlier than you would be able to on a solo run, especially if you're the trailer car, which at the time is the 57 of Stykes. They're coming to the white flag right now, but Stykes kind of lost the draft there with Seville, so we will see white flag, 1 lap to go. Do the Will Borsler Racing teammates have 2 more miles left in them?
White flag in the air here. Like you said, does the number 11 have enough fuel? Does the number 57 have enough fuel? Does the number 55 have enough fuel? Can John Jenkins steal this? with a last lap pass for the win. He's a little bit too far back right now. He's going to need a couple of these cars in front of him to run out of fuel, but as of right now, Tyler Seville still under power in that sliced porcupines machine, running it through turn number 3 and 4. His teammate Craig Sykes right behind him. Can this be a Will Worcester Racing machine? 1-2. We got cars running out of fuel right down low, but it's not gonna run out for the number 11 machine. Tyler Seville takes it to victory lane here at Michigan International Speedway. What a fantastic job of saving fuel for that number 11 machine, getting to the end. We were all thinking that John Jenkins was in the catbird seat. Well, just like that, Jenkins is going to come home 4th. Brian Yazik saves enough in the HPPsimulation.com Ford to come home in 3rd. What a fantastic finish here, guys. Only one caution here tonight at Michigan, and these drivers put on a spectacular show all night long, Craig.
Great race here tonight, and that pit strategy, we talked about it, trying that one-stop strategy. Mitch is the one that brought it up. We weren't sure if anyone was going to try it. Turns out someone did, and someone made it work, and it was the Will Worcester teammates, Tyler Seville and Craig Sykes of 1-2. How about that for Tyler Seville, though? That's been a long time coming for him in the number 11. He has earned this victory here tonight, guys, and you know he's got to be happy with how this one unfolded.
Absolutely, man. It could have been 3 wins in a row for Greg Evans, just a few laps short on fuel. But look at this. Tyler Seville still has enough fuel to even do a burnout here across the start-finish line. He must have saved an immense amount of fuel in that sliced porcupines machine. Very, very impressive to see that fuel management and get the checkered flag for his first win of the season here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series, and his first win in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Where did the number 2 of Greg Evans end up? Well, folks, he finished all the way down at 17th. Yep, and that's absolutely crazy after all that was said and done. Fantastic race here at Michigan International Speedway. Really, really enjoyed it. Well, folks, we're going to step away for just a brief moment. We'll step away for some quick commercials as the number 11 is parked it in victory lane.
Every day in business starts with a number. Output, productivity, efficiency, all measured in numbers, because data drives decisions. And if fire or water damage strikes, the numbers for your business can slow or even stop. Unless you know this one. 1-800-SERVPRO, the number 1 choice in commercial cleanup and restoration.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and SERVPRO.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to Michigan International Speedway, and it was a spectacular run here tonight, especially for the number 55 machine of Brian Yazga, and I do believe that Mr. Greg Rentz has caught up with your third place finisher here tonight, the number 55 of Brian Yazek.
Yeah, Brian Yazek, Greg Rentz, 3YTV, you got a copy? Hey man, that was a very impressive performance out of you today because being able to save fuel throughout the course of that run while battling there, you really made that one-stop strategy work out for you there.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing was that caution. I don't know, lap 10, lap 8, something like that. And I told the guys we're gonna have to save really, really hard under this caution if we want to make this, kind of deal work out. It worked out. These cars, it's real easy to kind of make the fuel number work if you got a couple fast guys around you. So that was good. That made it real easy for our HPP simulation Mustang.
And talk to us about how you managed to save while battling like that. You mentioned it's easy when you have cars around there, but you were battling 4 positions. So tell us about the balancing act there that you were doing in the second half of the race to try to balance it out by being aggressive and going for a position when the opportunity came and then going right back into conservation mode. Tell us about flipping the switch back and forth there.
Well, it's kind of like road course racing. When you get to these big, wide, tracks like this with this cup package, you just kind of have to drive around to what's around you. So I try to make a move on the inside without trying to kill the tires. There's a special way I've kind of figured out how to get around here, and it works. Keeps the tires on it. I mean, and it's just that hunk of meat between the ears has to talk to the right foot and kind of balance it out. But you're right though. It's a challenge because the hardest part about it is you got to check your ego at the door. Just because you can't afford to get up there and run because it's gonna mess with the greater picture of what you're aiming for.
Well, you mentioned it's a little bit like road course racing, and Brian, that just so happens to be what's next on the docket. So you excited for that?
Nope, not at all. I don't. I don't like Sonoma. I've just never gotten around there good. I probably haven't driven a cup car there in at least 2 years, probably closer to 3. So I don't know how that's going to work. We'll probably have to try to get some seat time in this weekend just to kind of get used to the track and the layout and the changes and stuff like that with the carousel. And because I've driven that in an Indy car, I've never driven that in a cup car, so that'll be curious.
All right, well, Brian Yazik, a third here this afternoon at Michigan, which I believe is your home track. So I know you're pretty happy about that, and I know you got some shout-outs you want to give. So
No, you're absolutely right. Loud Pedal Motorsports, the team that Mike and I own. Mike's from Canada, Toronto, Canada. Pete's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Woody is just from the other side of the Michigan border. I'm all the way up here in the upper part of Michigan. So, it's a home track for us. Absolutely, we always try to come and bring the best stuff that we got here. Good run for everybody. Just kind of, depending on how the strategy bit you there, but but it still worked out for us. Loud Pedal Motorsports, clipping that Apex. Sim racing apps. If you want to talk about fuel mileage and mapping, go out there and figure out simracingapps.com. Absolutely had me right down to the T, to the point that that first caution or that first pit stop, we were sputtering coming to the stall. And by God, we were right on the number. So, Sim Racing Apps was big for that. Go out there, like I said, go out and give it a look if you're not using it. That's what we got, man.
All right, and you got a third place here tonight and a podium finish at your home track. Brian Yazik in third. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And going down where I believe Peter Short has caught up with the guy who came home in second playing the fuel mileage game, Craig.
Yeah, I've caught up with driver of the number 57. Got a win earlier this season at Talladega, but this is your second podium of the year, Craig. And I got to say, you played your fuel numbers perfectly, as did Tyler. I'm sure you were back and forth on whether or not you thought you could make it on fuel, but tell us a little bit about how you did it and how difficult it is to race with other people around you when you are saving fuel.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot of fun. I'm not crazy over those style of racing. Just it felt like the entire race we're just trying to save tires and fuel. And I'm probably going to be looking for a team after this race, because I basically used my car owner to have enough fuel to make it to the end, and he ended up running out because of it. So,
well, I gotta say, you got to do what you got to do to make it to the end. I'm sure, Will would probably prefer it if one of his own team cars would make it to the end on fuel, and if it wasn't one of his team cars. So maybe that's a little bit of solace for him.
Yeah, I hope so, man. It was. I knew when we came out, he was in front of me and he was all by himself, and he pitted a lap before me, so he even had less fuel than I did, and I knew how close I was going to be. So I was thinking, well, we'll team up, and I was trying to push him as much as I could and still make sure I wasn't going to run out of fuel. So I mean, I hate coming in early and having to qualify to get in these races, and it's my own fault because I'm not able to make them very often. So I was thinking, well, maybe I can get top 20 in points and at least lock myself in so I don't have to do the qualifying to get into the races. But, I mean, it was either I could have jumped out in front of him and pulled him. Maybe we could have swapped out some. But I knew Tyler said he was good pretty early in the run. He pretty much knew he was going to make it. He had plenty of fuel. And luckily, one WWR car was left at the very end to be able to draft with him, because if not, Yazik and Jenkins were going to roll him pretty easy, I'd say.
Well, that was a fantastic race, and we just heard from Brian Yazik, who uses one of the iRacing app to look at his fuel number and that sort of thing. Do you similarly use an app of some sort to manage your fuel number that you have to hit?
Well, actually, this is the first race I actually used an app, but the fuel the fuel part of the app wouldn't even work, so I don't know what was going on. But no, honestly, I use AJ and Wayne Lowe was in there. Wayne Lowe was doing a lot of fuel calculating for us, kind of letting us know what was going on. So no, I just depend on them. I just drive. I'm a terrible teammate.
Well, I'll tell you what, terrible teammate or not, you do come home with a second place finish tonight, and that is quite all right. And of course, like you said, closing in on the top 20 in points. So you don't have to do qualifying. You might have to still do it for a race or two, but hopefully you can break into the top 20. But before we let you go, you got any shout outs for us?
Everybody at Will Worcester Racing, Perky Pints, Slice Pizza Bar. They help us out as far as getting what we got to get to be able to race. And just Nikki, I know she said in the chat that it's my fault that Will lost and finished wherever he finished, and she's pretty much right. And but thank her for cheering us on. I gotta thank my wife. Last time when I won at Talladega, and I thanked Nikki, and I didn't even thank my wife, and she's in there watching my 3-year-old, so I can actually do this. So thanks to her and everybody that helps us out.
Well, I gotta say, great run for you here tonight. Even though you might not enjoy these races, you come away with a great finish, and we hope to see you next week, turning left and right at Sonoma road course. Very quickly, you excited about a road course?
No, not at all.
All right, well, hopefully you come away with a good finish. The second place would be awesome then next week for you, but good luck at Sonoma.
Thank you, guys.
And I do believe Mr. Greg Rentz has finally worked his way down to victory lane, where the number 11 machine has maybe eventually run out of fuel. I don't know, but Greg, you're there with the race winner. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Tyler Seville, Greg Rentz, 3YTV. You got a copy?
Yeah.
Hey, man, you made the fuel mileage game work. We were watching you coming down through the last few laps. We were wondering if you had enough, and turns out you had just enough to make it and do a little celebrating afterwards. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still sitting. I could go for another lap if I needed to.
Well, that just shows you what the fuel mileage game does. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Brian Yazik earlier in the interviews, because we saw kind of a balancing act between our drivers here late in the going of being aggressive, trying to gain a position, and then going back into the conservation mode. So tell us a little bit about flipping the switch there, being aggressive, trying to get a spot, and then going back into conservation mode. Late in the race, you're trying to save fuel. Tell us about the balancing act that goes on there.
Right, so I think I put it on lap roughly 53, and so I knew if I saved enough just from the practice that I had done earlier in the week that I would be able to make it. And Yazik got around me. We both pitted at the same time, and I was able to just tuck right on his bumper and not be full throttle the entire way down the straightaways. And we kept running down more and more people. And then when we finally caught up to my two teammates there, Yazik struggled to get by them on the bottom, and I was able to get around Yazik, and that was the game changer move because I knew he was on the same strategy as me.
And it helped a lot because you had another car on the same strategy as you, being your teammate, Craig Stykes in the 57, who was right there with you at the end, pushing you there at the end. So that had to be, that had to feel good having a teammate with you, but it also had to be a little bit stressful because no one else wants to beat you more than your teammates. So that had to be a little bit of interesting team communications there at the end.
It was. Craig is fast no matter what track we go to. He helps push us all in practice and stuff like that. So I knew he was going to be tough to beat, but I also knew that I didn't have to worry about him dive bombing and sliding up into me. I knew if he was going to pass me, it was going to be clean at least.
And it worked out for you. A big win on the season. It's got to feel good for you. You've had some strong runs, but just haven't had the results that you've been looking for. So to finally break through and get that win has to feel really good.
Yeah, it feels fantastic. I couldn't do it without all the help of my teammates. Wayne Lowe's in the chat helping us with fuel mileage and stuff. AJ's done that in the past. So great team win. I'm really glad that WWR had 3 cars in the top 10. It's a fantastic showing.
All right, well, we've asked Yazik, we've asked Craig. We got to ask you, lefts and rights next week. You excited?
I'm not excited for Sonoma, but given how I ran at some road courses last year, I'm cautiously optimistic. It'll be a lot of practice time for the next week.
All right, well, we know you got some shout-outs you've been waiting a while to give, and here you are in Victory Lane. So who you...
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say Slice Pizza Bar, Perky Pipes, the Bold Bikini, and then thank SERVPRO for putting on this challenge for these races. It's great to be able to run into these, and it should have been a good points day for me for that.
That's your race winner. Tyler Seville stretches the distance and makes it work. Congratulations, Tyler.
Thank you.
Well, and I gotta say, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Greg, but I gotta say, round 5 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown, it did not disappoint. Spectacular race here tonight. Just stellar racing. Only 1 caution here tonight, folks. If you're just now joining us, make sure you go back and watch this one on the race because there was some awesome action pretty much all the way till we got to that first green flag pit stop, and then after that it became a guessing game who was going to make it to the checkered flag first, and it was the number 11 of Tyler Seville taking home his first win of the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series title and his first win in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. And behind him, Craig Stykes, who won the last round at Talladega in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown in that number 57, coming home second. Brian Yazik coming home third in that number 55 HVPSimulations.com machine. John Jenkins and the Max Pappas Innovations number 7 machine finishing 4th, and I thought he was in the catbird seat, but I guess I hadn't done my numbers right because Tyler Seville proved me wrong as he starts to drive away there. He's still got fuel in that tank. John Broussard in the number 53 comes home 5th. Great run for him. He was on that the similar strategy to John Jenkins in that car. Alan Young comes home in 6th. Tony Schoen also on the same strategy as John Jenkins. He comes home 7th. A.J. Digby, great run for him in his first race with his Premier Series license, coming home with a top 10. Michael Krobach, your pole sitter in that number 72 machine, getting word that he actually might have run out coming across the start-finish line. Doug Mullins, one of the other Milwaukee Racing machines, rounds out your top 10, Greg.
Salted caramel cheesecake for everyone in the 11th spot. Adam Jersky coming home with an 11th place finish in the 69. To his mirror, another one with the number 60 on it, the 66, Edward Bray. John Van Varellis comes home in the 13th position in car number 78. Michael Whiting, another driver who is running a new number this season, or this weekend, number 44, comes home 14th. Will Worsler, having such a strong run, led a few laps, led a couple laps, was running up in the top 5 all day. Unfortunately, the fuel mileage just doesn't go his way, finishes in the 15th position. Richard Stallings in the number 17 comes home In the 16th position, the man who led the most laps, Greg Evans, finishes one spot better than he started, comes home in the 17th position after another dominating performance out of the number 2, formerly known as the 83, with Jimmy McKee coming home in the 18th position. In the 8th, Sam Crow, after having the incident on pit road, comes home 19th with Troy Haight rounding out the top 20, Peter.
In the 21st position was the number 1 of Jason Stewart, the first car 1 lap down. Behind him, Tim Knott in the number 41 machine. Christopher Bouchard in the number 50 comes home in 23rd. Chris Hughes in the number 22 machine comes home in 24th. Great to see that number 22 on track here tonight. Chris Stouffer in the number 13 comes home in a 25th position, right in front of James Lorello, who had gotten some damage early on, and I think that really affected Lorello's race all race long. Ty Hester in the number 36, we saw him slam the wall. And Mitch, like you said, that right side damage in that number 36 machine, he really could not overcome it, finishing well down the order. Todd Kirkwood in the 86 machine comes home 28th. In 29th, the number 4 machine of J.R. Bash, right in front of the number 6 of Jared Haggerty, who also had to nurse a wounded car all night long. Let's take you through the last few finishers here tonight. Richard Fletcher in the number 43 comes home 31st. Pete Baskins, first car 2 laps down in the 27 machine, 32nd. Bradley, 33rd. Kelsey Rogers, 34th in the number 34 machine. Cody Spiker in the number 19 comes home 35th. Mark Myers, 36th. Nick Gardner, 37th. And then the 3 cars that did not finish here tonight, Grant Brown, Woody Mahan, and Alex Giese. All in all, a fantastic race. And Mitch, I'm sure you're going to be excited to get out there on the racetrack next week, going left and right at Sonoma. You'll be back in the car. Your suspension's over. You looking forward to Sonoma?
I'm gonna be different. I'm looking forward to it. It's something different. Sonoma's not one of our best tracks. I prefer Watkins Glen better. But I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to get back on the track. It was kind of tough not be able to race tonight, but I mean, it made up for it. I get to help you guys commentate this race, and hopefully this isn't the last time I get to do this.
Absolutely. Definitely enjoyed your insight. I mean, I think you pretty much called the race and what we kind of saw under those green flag conditions. So it's definitely great to have you in the booth. Hope to have you up here at some other point in the future. Of course, hopefully not serving a suspension, but hopefully you can join us maybe for one of these broadcasts or one of the other leagues that we broadcast here on 3Y TV, because there are a couple of others. If you've enjoyed this broadcast and you want to see more of them, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well for this stellar race tonight, because I don't think you'll see many other races better than this one. Let us know with that blue thumb with that like button. But for myself, Peter Short, Greg Rance, and Mitch Brown, we want to give each and every one of you a good night. And of course, man, I'm forgetting our Mr. Producer. He's going to be in my ear here in a minute. Mr. Carlos Acosta, who mans all these cameras. Want to give each and every one of you a good night, a good day, whatever the case may be. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place, back for Sonoma. It is the War Turtle Racing Wine Country Clash. 45 laps. We'll see you, same place, same time, right here on 3Y TV. See ya!